Welcome to another exciting episode of Bit Different Podcast. I'm your host, Nekesa, and I hope you've subscribed, commented, liked, shared, and told your friends about our content. So today we are going to talk about single parenthood. And I will let my guests tell us more of how they ended up in that situation, because I don't think it's anyone's choice to be a single parent. And yeah, let me see whether I'm wrong on that. So welcome my guests, and we will start with introductions. You can tell us your name and maybe what you do. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Cecilia. I'm a lecturer at one of the local universities.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'm Nakito Mango.
Nakito Mango. Welcome Cecilia and Nakito.
Hi, my name is Janice Njoroge. I am a development communications professional. I know it kind of sounds wordy, but I work in communications. And I'm here with my daughter, who's going to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Sylvia.
Welcome Sylvia, welcome all of you. So I wanted us to start with the conversation of how you ended up here, and by here I mean as a single parent. Cecilia, we will start with you.
My journey to single parenthood was unexpected. One weekend, we got a call. I was not at home, and I was informed my husband was being rushed to hospital. A few days later, he passed away due to a brain aneurysm. That's how I found myself a single parent within a space of a few days.
Wow, so sorry about that. So, and how old, in terms of time, how far back is it? Are you comfortable telling us the timings?
Yeah, it's now 8 years and counting. And at the time, she's my only child. She was 2.5 years old at the time. Myself, I was just about to hit 40. So, people talk about different milestones, this before the age of 40. Yes, I found myself in that journey, very early on, and trying to make plans that before were shared with other people, but now I was making those plans. Yes.
Oh, wow.
That's heavy. That's heavy to hear. Well, in my instance, I got pregnant when I was quite young, at the age of 19. And I was in a relationship, as young adolescents do, right? With somebody who was much older than me. And then I got pregnant. I was right in campus. So the dynamics were very different. Lots of decision-making points there around what happens next. But yeah, that's how I ended up finding myself as a single parent, because he then also left the country, so I was left at home. Just the challenge of being in university and living with your parents. So it sort of became like the default setting. Yeah, so that's I ended up raising a girl on my own.
So Cecilia, tell us, so what happened in terms of your mindset now when all this happened, when now you lost your husband and you needed to, you're a parent, she's 2.5, 2.5 is pretty young. So the child is 2.5 years old and your husband has passed on and you need to now go on with life.
Many things come to mind because it was not immediate. People, like there's an accident and you're informed and you go to the mortuary. But for us, as I said, a few days with him, and the doctor saying nothing is going to happen, and you have to let go, and you're just getting this kind of disappointing, heartbreaking news. So when we finished with the hospital, now So there's the issue of the burial and the funeral, and we hadn't been together that long. And then we also new parents.
Okay.
So the family, his family to be precise, you know, of course, took charge. One of the interesting things is that up to that point in time, we had never been to the rural home.
Okay.
So I didn't know even where we were going for the burial. Neither did she. So anyway, so we had this rush to prepare for a burial. But what was interesting also at the same time was his classmate had just passed away, I think 2 weeks earlier. So it was the same group of people going through some emotional journey. So there was the classmate, so for her, she has 2 children. So as the friends were adjusting to that, the other friend also, in my case, was going through the same thing. So those, about 2 weeks, it was just a haze. Everything was happening relatively fast. Trying to learn quickly, or is it on the job? The cultural practices around, for example, the burial. Like one of the interesting things was how they insisted that on the actual day we left Nairobi, that I could not be very far away from the coffin, thinking he's not going anywhere, he's gone. Anyway, so small things like that, you know, as we were proceeding, you get home, as they would say, and you know, you don't know where you are, because we got there at night. The only person I really knew, to be honest, was my daughter, who was holding, because she was asleep. So we only knew each other. So in the mornings, when we are seeing the gravity of, you know, exactly where we are. Yes, we had the mobile phone, but you know, where the people I know, these are all people, most of the people I was meeting them for the first time at the burial. Some I had only had heard about, so now they're like introduced. So as much as it was a burial, it was also an introduction. And then at the same time, of course, I was the parent. Nobody else was there. Up to that point, we used to take care of her, the 2 of us. So anyway, so, you know, the burial is done. We can see the grave. We go there at least every year. Her grandma, make sure we have a few prayers there. So from that moment, I would say it was, I don't know, that it was, of course, there was still the shock and disbelief of, okay, now what next? But importantly was that I still had to take care of somebody, because the eating, dressing, got back to Nairobi. I'm wondering, you know, can I continue working? But even if I stop working, what next? So it was those, you know, it was a bit of a dilemma, really, how to proceed. But through it all, I would say the good thing was prayer. You know, I didn't stop going to church, even though sometimes I don't think I was really hearing or listening to what was there. But it was also to remember that as an individual, she needed for me to be present, not to be absent, because I've read since, you know, it's so easy to forget about caring for someone else. You're caught up in your grief. So I'm not saying I did not grieve, you know, and it reminds me, you remember when we went to school? And then the teacher informed me later on that she had said that I don't seem to be missing Daddy at all, isn't it? So
you or her?
Me, I was not missing, because I was not really saying much. But you know, she was young. I even up to now, I can't really overwhelm her with, you know, the emotional journey, because her relationship is different from my relationship. Yes.
Nakito, how has it been? How has it been? Has this conversation ever come up? Are you hearing this for the first time? Or you know the story?
No. It's actually quite shocking to me to hear so much detail for the first time.
Oh. wow.
Because when she told me the story, she just told me that his brain refused to work, so he just died like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that when he was being rushed to hospital, people were there wasting time trying to carry him down the stairs instead of calling the ambulance.
Okay.
Sometimes I think that he might have been alive for a bit longer,
Mm-hmm.
like at least a year, if they wouldn't have rushed to call the ambulance a bit.
Mm.
It's devastating because I never got to have that relationship that most people have with their parents.
Yeah.
Because some people grow up without having a mother, others without a father, so sometimes it just hurts
Yeah.
to know that that person is never coming back
Mm-hmm.
to you for you to see them or anything like that. So it just hurts you.
Yeah. Oh, you make us cry.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay. Thanks for sharing, Nakito and Cecilia. So, Janice, do you want to tell us your headspace now? I don't know. When did you realize you're doing this alone?
Well, I think the reality of it, I mean, the first couple of years were really much a daze, right? I was, like I said, I was still living at home with my parents. I had a lot of support from my family. My sister was on hand to help with sort of the day-to-day child management.
Yeah.
So was my mom, and my dad continued to provide for Sylvia and I for quite a number of years, and still I started working.
Yeah.
I think once I got into the job market, the reality of what it actually means to raise a child really hit home. Because being, I think, my first job, I was making peanuts. But that is going to buy formula, it's going to buy diapers, I'm going to have to pay the nanny who's looking after. Because, I mean, I appreciate the sacrifice that my parents had made up until that point, even for me to be in uni, and my sister was also in uni. So there was a huge cost burden on them anyway, and I felt that the right thing to do is to help reduce that burden that my parents had. So as soon as I started working, I sort of took up a lot of these costs from them. And then it came to a point where this girl was ready to join school.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm in my early 20s here.
Yeah.
I'm also like, I want to leave the confines of my parents' home. I want to set up a home for myself, because ultimately the dream and the ideal was for me to live with my daughter. And so, and I think what's also interesting is the dynamic that grandparents take in situations like those as so-called secondary parents. Because they also get very invested in the well-being of their grandchildren. So even for them, letting go is also difficult. It has its challenges. So I guess that was a blessing in disguise, because then she stayed on with them for a few more years as I moved out of home and set up what was going to be our family unit and our family home for the two of us. And when I felt that I was ready to, come have her live with me, then that happened. Of course, with a lot of negotiation with her grandparents. But so the responsibility of looking after her, even when she did not live with me, was not lost on me, because I was still paying school fees. I was taking care of all her costs. I think the only thing I wasn't doing is being physically present. And I'd really love to hear what Sylvia's thinking is, because we've had those conversations. So for the first, I think 9 years, okay, maybe the first 2-3 years we lived together when I was still living at home. Then I moved out of home and lived by myself for a couple of years. She came to live with me when she was like 9.
I was only like 11.
I think you're in class 5,
I was
right?
in class 4.
4.
Yeah, just transitioned to class 5.
Yeah, so that's about
I don't
10.
know.
It's about 10
11,
years.
not 10 years.
It's about 10 years. So there was, so to speak, almost a 6-year period where I lived by myself, and in retrospect, I really did miss out on a lot. I was actually a weekend parent. I was a weekend parent because I'm busy grinding Monday to Friday. I'd go see her on Saturdays. Sometimes take her to my house, you know, where I was living then, and then have to take her back on Monday or Sunday evening, most Sunday evenings, and then have her go through the week with her grandparents, occasionally checking in via phone and things like that. So I really miss a lot. I missed a lot of that sort of day-to-day parenting dynamic for the formative years. And I have really spent the rest of the years of my life since then trying to make up for it. And I don't know, Sylvia, have I made up? Like, do you feel like, are we good?
I think that's more of that's a question for you. Do you feel
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess maybe I have. But it would be good to hear what Sylvia thinks because being through it.
Sly.
Let's go with Sly. Because Sly is
Sly. When did you wake up to the realization that, so I'm calling my grandparents. We were all calling her moms.
We were calling Gook's dad.
Yes, and we were all calling them.
Yeah, you guys used to call. So the weird thing is, I used to call, and this is something I have realized later on, is the fact that I used to call my grandfather dad, but I'd call my grandmother shushu.
Sure, yeah.
So it was always weird, like a weird moment when you're meeting someone new and then you're calling your grandfather dad, but your grandmother still shushu.
Yeah.
But I don't think I really was aware for the longest time because I feel like I was raised within a very comforting community that just, it didn't seem like a big deal or it never felt like there was something missing. And I think like the first time when I was really, like it hit me was probably around the time when I had just finished class 8.
Okay.
And we had this ropes camp thing, which is like it's like
Transition
a transition
program.
adolescence, a Christian transition adolescence thing, and we had a camp. So I had spent like a whole week of hiking, and we didn't have like watches, so we didn't know what time it was. So basically, I was in the
Wilderness.
I was so emotional by the end of it, and the last day we had our parents come in, and it was like this relief of, oh my goodness, finally you see someone you know, and you know, like it's like familiarity after a whole week of just struggling. And we had an event that day whereby, because we had been separated, the camp had been separated, girls and boys. So boys were on the outside and girls were on the outside. And when we were doing this official ceremony at the end, there was a point where the dads were supposed to give their daughters necklaces.
Oh.
And I was by myself and with my mom. And in that moment, like when we were waiting to, like when we were getting in line and they were doing the speeches, I was just wondering, what am I gonna do in this situation? Because my grandfather wasn't there. He was like the predominant father figure in my life. And he wasn't there. My mom was there by herself. And in my head, I just had this moment of, okay, so what happens now? So there's someone else who's supposed to be here in this situation. And I think in that moment, I just shrugged it off because one of my friends' father stepped in.
Yeah.
And because, I mean, we were close, so it didn't feel very weird. But still, afterwards, it was on the back of my mind. And I think that's when I started getting curious about, like, where's my dad? Because I don't really feel like we talked about it. And even if we did, I just don't remember. But it never dawned on me until that moment.
And I think I have to add that moment, every time I think about it, I think it's probably one of my lowest parenting moments, to be honest, because I was balancing tears. You can see all these other girls have their father and mother there, but this girl has only me. And it was very awkward, very, very awkward for me. And I thank God for this God-sent, parent who said, it's okay, I'm here, I'm going to do it for her as her father. But it has to be one of my lowest moments as a parent, just realizing that there's this stuck absence. And seeing how it affected her, I think, was also something significant. But I know she says she can't remember But we had those conversations over time. I guess it's also packaging this information in a manner that at the same time you want to protect this child, to make her feel loved, to make her feel wanted, to make her feel that she's not missing out on too much compared to others. And that's where the support system was really, really handy. But then when she got to an age, I think she was about 9, when she started asking me questions. So where's my father? And then I had the task of trying to find him and say, your daughter is curious and wants to get to know you and things like that. But anyway, yeah, it was a really low moment for me as a parent. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Janice.
School occasions.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Those ones.
Yeah, I always come to school. Do I?
They bring to light.
Yeah, but it's when we miss Daddy the most, I think. Yeah, because you remember when you finished, was it pre-unit when we were going to class? Yeah, I think that also was
Like
one
a graduation.
of...
Was
Yeah,
it like a
yeah,
graduation?
we did, yeah, but I don't know. How did you feel that day?
Do you remember the graduation?
I was fine when we got to the hall. I was like, okay, I'm graduating. I'm going to a new class. I'll meet new people. I'll meet your friends like that. But I was fine. But then when we got down and I got to meet Mom, I saw all those other people with their parents. They were giving high fives, having hugs. That's when I felt like breaking down into tears. Because as long as I can remember, that's something that's unfixable. Like when you break an egg, you can't put the egg back together and fill in the yolk, and something that has haunted me. Something that has haunted all my nightmares. The only thing that I can't get by, day by day, I can't get by the fact that I'll never see him again.
Oh, Nikita, you make us cry by the time we're finishing. So, Mommy, tell us about do you have a support system? I like the fact that they brought on the issue of the support system. Do you have a support system that has, I wanted you to tell me you've said how you came back to Nairobi, and then, I want to hear, apart from that headspace, the support system and how you've managed to, bring her up. Do you feel like you do more so that you do double? Do you feel like you run and do?
I think the interesting part is before, when he was found unconscious, we were at home, the family home. Now, what I mean by the family home is at the time, his mother. So at that point in time, it was his mother, his youngest brother, her cousin, my niece. We were all together. So already, there was a way we had already been living together. So we're not like strangers. So when we came back from the burial, unfortunately, the immediate absence was now her grandma decided to stay at the rural home. So now I was pretty much left with her and my niece. Because soon after, my brother-in-law uncle moved away. So what happened is, so if you wish, support came not in a slightly different way. So the home, I stay at home, still do to this date. So we have that support. We have a roof over our head, at least at minimum, you know, and we are very grateful and thankful because that has at least lifted one burden. And being in Nairobi, most people are concerned about rent. So at least that's one bill I don't think about. At least her granddaughter, my daughter, has somewhere to stay, including myself. So, you know, I just manage the normal household needs, food, utilities, and things like that. So, of course, now I don't have that company. So, my mother in particular, grandma, to be precise, is, because that's what we call her. Even I find myself calling my own mother grandma. So, grandma is the one who has held our hands, walked with us, seen us, happy, sad, isn't it? Birthdays. When we do, okay, I don't really do sleepovers. So sleepover used to be at grandma's, because she was staying somewhere else at the time. But currently, we're living with grandma. So grandma is our everything. She's the one sometimes who picks her from school, does at the moment our shopping sometimes, although I still, of course, do that. So through her physical presence, of course, as we all know, the praying mom, she's very prayerful, she wishes us well, loves the grandchild, because I think this is the only grandchild who is just hovering around her. So the way she was saying, trying to move her away must have been quite an interesting story. But yes, they are good friends. So it's now we do that balance of, we're in Nairobi, we go to the rural home. So because we are African, in the African context, there's always that challenge of whether the in-laws will continue going along with you. They're still with us up to this day. Her uncle to be precise, and aunt now on her father's siblings currently are out of the country, but they have always supported us, whether it's from time to time financially, if you wish, sending stuff like toys, gifts, especially for her, and it's ongoing. I hope, it will always be there. We take it a day at a time.
Wow. So Sly, we come back to you. So how did this conversation, turn out, end up? Did you feel like the questions were answered?
I don't necessarily think so, because I feel, especially because I have never, you both have the experience of what it was like to have him around at first. You know the dynamic. There's a presence missing. But for me, for the longest time, I was oblivious of it. So even the questions I asked weren't, looking back, I don't think they provided anything for me. Because I feel like I was just asking because I felt like I was supposed to. But in deep down, I didn't want to know. Because I guess a part of me thought that maybe knowing would bring me more discomfort than not knowing. So it felt like the safer option. So I just asked the general questions, like, what's his name?
What's his name?
That's it.
What is he? No, not necessarily what is he like, but what's his name? What does it look like? Because we've never seen each other. Or at least I haven't seen him. It's just those, for the sake of just getting this conversation over and done with type of questions. And I guess now, and I think I believe I still hold the same mental headspace, because as much as I did feel like something was missing, I didn't want to change anything. Because changing and just getting acquainted with this whole other side felt like it would disrupt the comfort I'm already accustomed to. So I didn't really go.
Or you'll be forced to have a relationship you do not want.
Not necessarily that I did not want, because I feel like there's always going to be that longing of knowing what it would be like to be someone's daughter, like to feel what everyone else feels normal, like what is considered normal. That is, there's always going to be that feeling, but then there's also the realization that I am 21 years old right now. I mentally cannot picture it. Like I hate to say it, but I can't envision having him in my life now, because it's been so long, And of course there is the discomfort and the awkwardness of explaining to your friends, or having to answer questions and not be very comfortable with it, and that comes with time. And when you mentioned the aspects of school, actually a memory came to mind over time. And mine was, it wasn't more of me, it was more of irritation. And I will give context first before I explain why I was irritated. So what happened was we had like the parents' day where you come, your teachers.
An academic day.
Yeah. So you have the teacher, the student, the parents, right? And then I look in this hall, and I think at this point, because I was in I was like Form 2, Form 3.
Yeah, it was Form 2.
I was already gotten over it. So I remember we were seated with one of my teachers, and well, my mom looks very young for her age.
For my age.
And so my teacher was in disbelief that she was my mom to begin with, because one, the age gap, like to him it didn't make sense. Like he envisioned probably someone older, like seated. Like he was like, this is not your mom, this is your sister. And he literally said it. He was like, this is not your mom, this is your sister. And I'm like, no, this is my mom. And at this point she was just quiet, like waiting to see how this plays out. Then he asks my mom, like, are you her mother? Then she's like, yeah, I am. Then she's like, okay, I don't want to talk to the mother, let me talk to the father.
Yeah.
And I think for me the reason why I got irritated is the fact that I didn't understand why there was need to have, like, okay, yeah, I think at some point
That's what the teacher said.
Yeah, he did. He was like point blank.
For effect.
Point blank. He was like, I don't want to talk to
I
them.
don't talk to them.
is finished or something.
No, like
No, he said, where's the father? I want to
Like, he
talk to the
dismissed
father.
you
And we're like,
and
we were both in
we just looked
disbelief.
at each other and were like, okay.
Yeah.
And I think she handled it very calmly, because I was like on the verge of rage, because I was like, why does it make this conversation any lesser that he's not here? Who's to say that what my mother has done for me in the past years is just insignificant because he's not here? And does it really make a difference? Because even if he was here, my grades would have probably been the same. I mean, math was not.
It was math. It was her math teacher, I
Math
remember.
was never my strong suit.
yeah.
And I was just very upset. So the entire time, I just sat there in disbelief. And I think that was the first time when I realized that there's a way people view you when you say like you were just raised by a single parent. And I've never understood why. Because I feel, on a personal level, I feel like my mom has really done a lot to make sure that I have everything I need, both emotionally and financially, and just like be stable, you know. So it felt very weird to have people determine, like explaining things. And I remember there was a time when it was a passing comment where someone was like, "This is what happens when you're not raised by two parents." Because I think I said something snarky. And it was in
She
school.
can be very
I can be very
vocal.
Let's say that. Because I don't see the point of hiding the reality for what it is. And the fact that, and as soon as I came to terms with the fact that it was just my mom and I never felt like it was something I needed to hide. So if someone would ask, I'd just be like, no, it's just my mom and I, and that's it. And if they ask questions, I'll be like, I don't want to talk about it, or we don't know each other that well. Like those are the responses I'd give, because I felt over time, and I feel like I crafted that response over time because everyone kept tying who I was
Like
to what I was missing.
that's your conversation starter. Like when it comes to that, it's always you feel like you're being poked and you're being asked more than.
And also, it also transcends beyond that, because there's a look you get. There's a way people walk and talk around you when they learn.
Or change how they view you, their perception.
I mean, I think what I've noticed is that people will sort of avoid talking about both parent dynamics, you know, so a lot less reference to my father.
It
Because
already
you don't
becomes
because you don't want to look like you're making her feel like she's missing out on something. So it already creates a very awkward situation and an unbalanced state of play to even have a productive conversation. But yeah, I think I admire the way she handles some of those very, very sensitive situations. Yeah, I think she's done well.
So Janice, maybe she said something. You said you were trying to make up for the 6 years. I like the difference in the dynamics, but also have you ever thought you've tried to make up for the lack of
And the other parent?
Yes.
Not even just tried to, but the sheer burden, the responsibility. So ensuring that she has a great quality education costs money. Ensuring that she has access to what she needs costs money. And I always say, I feel that because I was in this situation, it really shaped my work ethic. I think I have had to work harder than my peers. I have felt the need to make smarter decisions when it comes to where our money goes and how it's spent. Because when push comes to shove, Sylvia is not going to go and ask anyone else for money. It will always be back at me. But it's also made me really careful around what is introduced in her world. Okay. And here you're also looking at relationship decisions, you know. So, and it's anyway, I was going to say something, but that's a story for another day. But it really, you have to be mom. I don't say, most people say you have to play the role of both mom and dad. Well, I don't think anybody can really play that role, right? But you just take on the burden of the responsibility that would have been shared. And I think Cecilia has also mentioned that. A responsibility that should have been shared by two people, emotionally, financially, spiritually. All those things then rest with you. And that in itself is heavy. Now, if you're a single woman, at the same time you're trying to juggle work, a relationship, I actually can't think of doing life anywhere any different, because I mean, let's start with the fact that soon we'll be done with uni. So that's a burden that's sort of lifted and will allow me to focus on other things that would have what I really want to do with my resources and stuff like that. But yeah, lots of support all around.
But also, it's important to acknowledge the fact that even like the way we are now, like the dynamic you and I have now, it did take a lot. It took a while to get here to the point where it's just, this is our reality and this is okay. And that our worth isn't, like my worth personally is not determined by what I did not have. Because the person I am is, I feel like this is where I'd have probably ended up regardless. It may have taken longer.
Right? Yeah.
It may have taken longer, but this is who I am and this is who I was meant to be. So it takes a while, but we get there.
I like that.
But it has meant that Sylvia has also had to take up a lot of responsibility on her own, because it's just the two of us, right? So for the earlier years of my career, I traveled quite a lot. So many a times this girl was by herself. She learned how to cook for herself at a very early age. She learned how to do her own laundry, get herself ready for school at a very early age, because it's just me and her. And I think making it intentional to say it's just me and her was also to help me make up for that lost time. Because now if I have a nanny or someone who's helping with those things day to day, it means it's relieving that responsibility from me. But I wanted that responsibility because I felt that I needed to make up for that loss. So then we found a system that worked. And I think the young woman she is today also stems from her having, it was all hands on deck for us. You know, she does this, I do this. And it's really helped her be a lot more grounded, honestly, I must say. Let me toot her horn, because she probably won't do it for herself. But she's pretty responsible.
She is. I mean, you can pick it, even from the conversation, the way she's talking. You moms have done like good jobs, great jobs, even the way Nakito is expressing herself. I mean, for an 11-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
No, because I'm looking at them and thinking, oh gosh.
Yeah.
We're not too far, but we are still on that journey with Nakito. And teenagers are coming at some point very soon, and I'm excited because in a way I want to like put my feet up, whatever that means. But at the same time, I'm a bit nervous because I look at her and think this is a different milestone.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, let me go back to schooling. So like, for example, a bit earlier, we were having this discussion about school, you know, boarding school versus day school. And it always reminds me, one of the few odd conversations we had that time, soon after she was born, was, where is she going to school? And one of the things was, I was like, oh, primary she'll be at home, and high school she'll go to boarding, end of story. And he was like, no boarding school for her at all. So we have reached that, almost at that point in time where we were supposed to have that argument again about whether she's going to boarding school for high school or she's going to stay at day school. So a lot of things have happened. I've also looked back at my former high school. I'm not saying I want her to go there, but I've looked at it over time, and I'm inclined to side with him as much as he's not there physically, that we'll be at home. And the reason why I want her to be at home, I think maybe because like now you're off at college, is that I think this is the last times I can be able to still insist that I want to make this for dinner. And although I'm kind of losing that battle these days, but at least for her to be there, and then, she'll be going to somewhere, and she promises me that we'll always be somewhere together. She won't leave me, but life happens, and I want Nakito for you to know, whatever decision you make, I'll support you.
Every time we have this sort of conversation, I think to myself, now when I'm older, I have a job, I have bought a house.
Yes.
What do? I always feel that I have the need to come back to you because I know it's hard. Daddy is not there for you.
No.
Grandma might not be there at that time, so I feel the need that I have to be there for you. At school, people will ask me sometimes, I never see your dad coming to pick you up. What happened? I say, oh, he passed away when I was small. I hear them say, oh, sorry. I say, it's fine. Because I feel when you say sorry, you're reminding the person that, oh, this person lost their parent or guardian when they were younger. So even when I know someone who's lost a parent, I don't like to say sorry. I feel bad for them, but I don't say sorry because it hurts them. So I say that when I get older, I'll come back to you because even the space I'm in school, at home, now I just feel like those people who I know, they're fake friends. They just use me for things, so I left them.
Okay.
Then at school now, my group is crumbling apart. Now I'm even thinking to myself, how do I avoid these people sometimes, to have some time for myself? I sit there.
So you like being at home with your mommy?
Yes.
Safer. Safer there.
Oh, Nakita. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So, mummies, do we have, of course, we'll all get like parting shots, but generally, what would you say about your journey this far? And, we've summarized the challenges, and what's the hope for going forward?
Moving forward, I'd say it's my motto. One day at a time, really. I cannot predict what's going to happen. Right now, I pray that I have good health and strength, that I'm able to be there in terms of to not only take care of myself, because one of the, from what she's saying, and I think even for Sly, one of the things when we're in this situation is that you have to also think about yourself. It sounds selfish, I know, the way she said about going to see your friends. But Nakito, the reason sometimes we have to end up going, and sometimes it seems we have like run away or gone missing for some time, is because sometimes we are trying to cope with what's happening. And being with those friends, especially those who were there, you know, from the journey. So in my case these are people I knew before. They saw me at that flashpoint. They saw me when things were not working out. They have always been there. So sometimes the reason I say one day at a time is because it gives me also an opportunity to think back at little bit, sometimes just to take a step back, sometimes even just to plan forward, you know, what we are going to do. Sometimes it's just even to find out, you know, I'm thinking of this and I'm trying to follow a certain approach. And I could worry about, you know, her college education now. I'm beginning to think about it. But really the reality now is, you know, are we still going to school? Are we eating? And, you know, is everybody in good health and strength so that, you know, we can take this step one day at a time.
Oh, thank you, Cecilia. And Nakito, Janice, and Sly, what are your parting shots? What's the hope for tomorrow? Maybe learning, what is it called? Takeaways.
Well, I think for me, there are a couple of takeaways from this journey. Number one, it's to encourage Cecilia and Nakito.
Oh.
It feels heavy, but trust me, if there's anything I have learned from this experience, that God will always provide what you need in that moment. So he will come through. And I've heard from even what you said, you have a strong faith. He will always provide. I think, and there's this saying that God, something around God providing for single moms or that there's that widows and orphans. Yeah. Trust me that God will always provide. So I want you to be encouraged because it might seem like a very long haul ahead. But then let me tell you, when these children become teenagers, time flies by so fast. I mean, it will come with its challenges. But my biggest lesson has been to worry less about what we don't have or what we feel we are not in control of. And it's very difficult, I know, sometimes as the only person there. But it's to allow yourself, give yourself grace. That's important. But the other thing is, the relationship that you have with your daughter will also help you navigate some of these very difficult moments. I used to, when I'm having a hard day at work, especially now that Sylvia has grown older, she'll be like, so what's happening? And even if it's not to offer a solution, she will listen.
You will pour.
She will just listen. And you're not unburdening things that are, say, not necessarily age appropriate or too heavy for someone her age. And I can hear Nakito craving that, you know, she's like, I just want to spend more time with mom. That's actually what they need. And it then comes back to how much we also try and strike a balance to be present for them, but to also have time for ourselves. Because if we don't have that balance, we'll end up skewing, you know, either you're over-mothering or you're under-mothering. It needs to be something in the middle there. I think that's my other learning. And when it comes to difficult conversations, as you will soon have as she gets into her teen years, it's also to help build her esteem in such a manner that, like Sylvia said, and it's so good to hear her saying, I know I'm enough. Whether, you know, I am enough. But it speaks to the parenting environment where you're Nakito's #1 champion. And and you're like, you've got this, or have you considered? So sort of a guiding role, even despite the fact that we have all these other responsibilities.
Yeah.
I think that has really helped to enhance my relationship with Sylvia, and it's been progressive. It's taken time, but we're in a place where we discuss budget. You know, we have to have those conversations. She would like this. I would love to have somebody take the load of paying university school fees, but that's not our reality. So we have to sit down and have discussions about where are we going to go to school, how are we going to spend money. And it really also helps to structure their perspective and things that they will learn about things they'll have to navigate down the road, which I think if you had both parents, then that conversation doesn't happen with their children, children until much later. When did our parents talk to us about money issues? Until we started making money. But now you start having those conversations progressively, and I think there's always a silver lining.
Yeah.
My silver linings have been numerous. And I am grateful. And I still have moments where I get overwhelmed. We're going back to school in September, and I'm like, school fees is coming.
Yeah.
But God's grace is sufficient. It is sufficient. It will always be. Those are my parting shots.
Oh, goodness me! I've cried. Uko ndani, I cry. My tears are usually just here. So thank you guys. I have learned. For some reason, I didn't even know this will turn out the way it has, and I'm sure you guys, you represent a certain percentage of people, you know, all of us here on this table, through the experiences that you've told. And I'm sure someone has been encouraged. I'm sure someone has learned. I'm sure someone has taken away something, and this will be, you know, a big lesson. I have learned from where I'm sitting. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your stories, Cecilia and Nakito. I love that name. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Janice and Sylvia, Sly. And you guys, man, I don't even know what to say. I'm so overwhelmed. I think we need a group hug after this. Thank you so much for watching. Comment, like, share, subscribe, and let's keep the conversations going. Have a good one.